Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Recruiters with No Limits. One thing I have to say about this, we have no scripts. This is all unscripted, and we talk about everything in the staffing industry, cutting edge stuff. I'm Richard Rosner, and I got my co-host here, John Raffini.
What's up, Richard?
And our special guest today, Todd Revol. How you doing, Todd, from Integrated Staffing?
Integrity, Richard, you got to get the name
Integrity. All right.
We're off to a good start today.
I'm living the dream, Richard. I'm living the dream.
You are. And you know what, real quick, Todd, I put the suit on for you, man. If anybody sees his promo flyer, man, he's dressed for success all the time.
Except today, I thought I'd cash it down, but, we're doing pretty good today.
So, Todd, let's deep dive into it. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your company.
Boy, it's a long story. So I'll hit the highlights. I've been in the staffing industry for over 30 years. I actually started as a temporary employee. So I jumped into staffing. I did the one thing I always tell people, don't do it. Don't leave a job without another position. And I jumped into it and I started as a recruiter right at the desk. Actually, I was a pre-screener and then made my way up in the organization after about 9 years, and then decided to take a leap on my own and started it out with my partner, Sean. And we, 25 years later, built a pretty good business and with a great team that we're really proud of.
I'd say that worked out for you.
A little bit. Yeah. It's still working out. I still love it every day.
I love the passion you have, man. So just give me a little bit of ideas of what started this all. I mean, just how many people start a staffing industry, a firm, and it doesn't work out? How did you get the strategy and everything like that, Todd, to make this work, man?
Well, I'll tell you, it's a good question. I am a salesperson by nature. And so for me, I wasn't a CEO. I don't think many people are, well, some might be, but I wasn't born to be a CEO. So I had to learn over the years how to really fine tune my skills in building strategy, strategic vision, building great teams. And it really started for me with getting a vision. And I'll share with you the very first big goal. We all have BHAGs, right? Big, hairy, audacious goal. And my first big, hairy, audacious goal was we had just started the business 2 years in. We were walking through the checkout line in a grocery store, and the magazines on the rack. Nothing was digital back then. And it was an Inc. magazine. And I opened it up. It said Inc. 500. I thought, what's this? So I looked at it. I thought, wait, interesting. Let's set a goal. Not we're going to make the Inc. 500. Let's make it into the top 10 of the Inc. 500. So we went back to the office, sat down with the team, and we said, okay, let's do the calculations. Here's the math. We have to get this big after this many years to be in the top 10, because we figured out the averages over the few years of the Inc. 500. And we literally had that as our vision for 5 years. We just kept pushing and pushing. And anyone we brought on board, that was where we wanted to get. And, we ended up number 2 on the Inc. 500. Yeah, it was pretty exciting. And then it really helped me get crystal clear that if you don't create a big vision for your team, and right now our big vision is to be the most create the greatest candidate experience and customer experience on the planet. That's what we focus on. It's not a number. And we believe that if we do that, the rest will happen. And you get people behind that vision and magic happens.
So here's a question for you, Todd, because there are folks, I was talking to Richard before we came on live today, and there are folks that are managers and there are folks that are leaders, and the two are not always synonymous. So yeah, you've got to manage people in their day to day, but to get people to buy into a vision like that, you have to be a leader. What are your biggest challenges, or what were your biggest challenges from the get-go? Like when you set the goal to be on the Inc. 500 top 10 and you ended up number 2, how did you get people to buy into that and support that vision?
Well, the first is having a simple scoreboard, right? What are the activities? What are the results that are going to get you there? And have it simple. Have a simple scorecard. I think that was one. You have to be able to track that easily. Too many metrics, too many things to track people get confused,
I
right?
agree.
On a football field, right? You look up at the scoreboard. It's real simple for the audience, right? Who has what score, what down it is, how many yards to go, and that's it. But when you look at the coaches, they have a lot more data. They know exactly what's happening down to the minutia. So, make sure that the teams have the score that they need to have. It's one way to get folks aligned behind a goal. Keep it simple.
Love that analogy too. It's very well stated, and it's digestible.
It is. And Todd, real quick, how do you get your staff to believe in you? I've seen so many people in the industry bounce from staffing firm to staffing firm. How do you get them to believe in you?
Believe in them.
What a great answer.
Believe
what a
in
great
them.
answer. That servant leadership mentality. I love
it. To me, it's you never get too big to sit side by side with somebody, roll up your sleeves, and get the job done.
I'm getting goosebumps with hearing this, man. This is good stuff, man.
Well, and it is. It's no secret why you've grown and you've maintained that success. The leadership, therein lies the difference between, leaders and managers. You don't look at your people as, hey, I'm above you. You look at them as, you're the reason why we succeed. And I think that makes a huge difference.
You're right. They're the front line, right? If you're playing football, they're blocking for you. You're not going to score a touchdown without them.
Yeah. Don't make decisions. Another important thing is as you're planning and you're making decisions as an organization, steering committees, getting the people on the front lines involved in those decisions is so critical to getting folks to buy into what's coming, right? So sometimes you can't do that, right? You can't get folks involved, but for the most part, you want to get your field involved.
Well said. I got to ask you, so time management, I always wonder when you're executive, how do you have time to do everything? You're going to meetings, you're doing this. How do you do it in a day, my man?
Eliminate time wasters and be relentless with my time. So time wasters, meetings, start on time, end on time. Don't have hour-long meetings. They're not necessary. You see somebody book an hour on your calendar, push to get it finished in 45 minutes. If you can't cut it down from an hour, cut it to 55 minutes. You think however many one-on-ones or meetings you have, if you cut them by 5 minutes, you gain an hour back in a week, right? So I look for time wasters. Anybody who's emailing me an email this long, send them back an email and it might sound a little harsh, but say, hey, this is too much information for me. Yes. Cut it down. Cut it down. You want to train people how to manage your time and their time, right? So I eliminate time wasters. I think that's one, and be relentless about my time. It's only sitting in meetings that I have to be in, questioning the why behind a meeting. Somebody comes to a meeting, having a clear agenda, with a result that ends up with who does what by when.
Got to leave a meeting with action items. You don't want to have a meeting and the result is, okay, let's schedule a follow-up meeting. It's like people hate that. That's a killer.
Close Absolutely. It, finish it, done.
I love the fact that you say keep it simple. I've always been a believer that our industry as a whole is a very simple business, and those within it tend to overcomplicate it when they don't have to. So I love the fact that you have a keep it simple mindset. I have a question for you. So in speaking with the theme of becoming an executive, okay, so you grew up through the industry. I love that you started as a temp and then, developed having a great career in staffing, leading and managing and cultivating. That's not an easy path, and it's not for everybody. What advice, if someone is out there and they're thinking about, hey, my career trajectory, I want to be an executive in this industry, what advice or guidance do you give them as far as what they need to do to prepare themselves for that journey?
Gotcha. I think three things. One, get a good coach. I always had a coach. As an executive, gets lonely. Right? It gets lonely sometimes. And you
can always call me, Todd.
Well, that goes to number two. Don't be insular. Interact with peer groups in your industry. Get involved. Really interact with other CEOs in your industry, regardless of what business you're in. There are great opportunities for that. And in our industry, we have great opportunity for that.
Yeah,
I'll not only through our the memberships, the ASA, SIA, et cetera, even in our local region, our corporate office is in Newark, Delaware, and there's 5 agencies who during COVID, we all got together and we said, look, we are all facing this challenge. Let's face it together. And we met once a week as a group and talked about what was happening, what we were doing. We shared. We have the abundance mentality, right? I've always believed in abundance. Yep. So I'm not afraid to share my secrets because there are no secrets. In fact,
amen to that.
For the most part, you go in front of a group of folks and you say, if you do these 5 things, X will happen. Very few will do those 5 things for more than a day. Right. So, I really believe that surrounding yourself with people that are smarter, that have different ideas, not being insular is critical to growth and success, and always having a coach.
I could never understand why some people were afraid to share. I go back to the days when I worked a desk and people would wonder, they'd say, hey, do you make all your contacts, private on LinkedIn? I'm like, no. They're like, well, aren't you afraid one of your, competitors is going to steal them? I'm like, well, if that happens, that's my fault, not theirs. I'm like, it's there's more than enough to go around. And from a leadership perspective, you're Richard, me, we're all involved in subcommittees at ASA, and you get on the networking calls with these leaders or the section council calls. And it's great to have people openly saying what's going on and what they're seeing in the market and what they're doing to address it. And we all learn and grow together. A high tide lifts all boats, so to speak.
Nice.
And it never ceased to amaze me that there are some leaders that really just wanted to keep everything close to the vest. They were so afraid, like, no, we don't want to get our secret out. When in reality, to your point, there are no secrets. I mean, everybody kind of does it. They put their own spin on it, but we learn and steal and take from each other as we develop in the business. That's how everybody learns.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's just abundance mentality. There's plenty of business out there for everyone.
Got that right.
So much business out there. What do you see in the forecast? I mean, for the future, Todd. I mean, you're an innovator. What's going to happen in the next 7-8 months? I know you're out there talking to leaders. What's going on in our industry, man?
Yeah, I see lots of opportunity. I see opportunity that comes with challenge, right? I think we'll continue to see the labor market tighten, even if it lightens up. It's going to tighten. I say to folks all the time, it's so hard to get people because of COVID. It's so hard. Well, guess what?
No, it isn't.
Unemployment. If unemployment was low, where it would be anyway, if COVID hadn't happened, right? COVID hadn't happened, we would be sitting right smack now in a tight labor market that would be driving rates up, doing similar things, maybe different, right, for different reasons. Obviously, COVID was a significant crisis and unprecedented, but we faced challenges like this as an industry before. You just do business differently. So what I see is continued tightening labor market. I see companies getting more creative with the solves of attracting talent outside of just compensation, by creating flexibility in scheduling, by creating flexibility in things like, do we need to drug test for THC? Is our background check adjudication grid the right one? Or can we limit that down? We require a high school diploma. Well, maybe now we don't. So I see a lot more flexibility, but we as staffing professionals really need to be having those conversations now, not when things get difficult, because those aren't simple decisions for most companies, right?
No, you can't just flip a switch.
No, it has to go through a board and everything else.
Those conversations. So I think get in front of it. I think, really get in front of that. So.
It's interesting. You brought up a good point that I think it's overlooked in the fact that pre-COVID, we were in a tight labor market. I mean, unemployment was record low. Right. And given the fact that, we all know that a portion of that unemployed figure is just quite simply unemployable. So whatever the number is, it's actually less.
Right.
It's always hard for us to find talent. And the blessing and the curse as recruiting professionals, we like that kind of market. That's when we can add the most value, and that's when companies need us the most. It doesn't make it any easier to find that talent, but that's what we like to operate in. So it's not, you're right, it's not unlike what we're in now. It's different challenges. And I love that you said, we have to adapt and change, because that's the key to success and survival in any industry. Is your guiding principles usually don't change, but how you execute your business has to adapt to the changing climate around you. And it sounds like you guys are way ahead of the curve, which is great.
Yeah, the only thing constant is change, John, right?
Yeah, you got that right.
Challenges equal change.
And Richardson, energy, that's constant.
Adapt equals change.
Energy constant as well. Yeah.
24/7.
Yeah, if a shark stops swimming, what happens?
Oh, forget it.
I guess the industry goes blunk, right?
That's it. It becomes a
Oh,
whole
you
lot
have
more.
to take over then for energy wise. But one question I have now is, we're into this remote workforce for recruiters. Todd, what's going on with this? What do you see and your leaders out there you're talking to about the remote recruiter?
Well, it's interesting. I think we're an industry that has opportunity for remote work, obviously, but I really believe that, with all of the automation, all the technology, we're still going to be an industry that requires what I call heart work, right? Head and heart work. We need to make sure that we're connecting with people. And if you have a recruiter that's great at that through their Zoom, through the phone, that's fantastic. But sometimes folks don't have that ability, right? And so you're going to have to be strategic about who's able to do that work and be successful at it, and who you hire. I think remote work is very, very challenging. I did it for quite some time, and it was odd for me. I'll tell you, because I like being around people. We're a people business. But I do see virtual recruiting becoming more and more acceptable and prevalent in our business.
It is at the core of what we do. It's a relationship business. And again, we talk about evolving and adapting to execution. A lot more first initial contacts these days are done electronically, but ultimately you still have to get in contact. You still have to have conversations. If it's in a local market, you still have to make an effort now, especially with restrictions lifting, to meet those people, because your bond will be so much more solidified, if you will, than if you just, you can't close deals over text. You can't close deals over email. It just doesn't happen. You can start conversations, but you're not going to develop that deep relationship.
And John, what's our famous words? Human connection.
That's it.
You gotta connect.
It's what we do.
Yeah, I really worry that even, there's something that happens. I don't know if you guys have had this occur. I have. Because of COVID and how long it went on and how much we weren't able to travel, there have been people who I've only interacted with through Zoom, and then I meet them.
Different story.
Something happens that's slightly different. There's a connection. There's a deeper connection that gets made. And so you're going to have to watch the trade-off of, because it's very, loyalty in our industry is really important, right? We want to have folks that want to continue working as temporary to communicate with us, be open with us, continue and allow us to redeploy them to other opportunities. That connection has to be there. And so for those who are never making that face-to-face connection, how do you replace it and ensuring it's effective and really tracking that as a metric?
Well said. Yeah, it's definitely an interesting time. When you mentioned that, it reminded me. So I just started traveling last month, for the last year. And I went out to one of our field offices in Nashville, and I was meeting people that I had trained in person that I had just seen over Zoom. And it was humbling and embarrassing, because some of them I didn't even recognize, because they look so different in person than they did on Zoom. To your point, it's like, there's nothing like that in-person, contact. I think as humans, we crave it, whether we realize it or not. And in our industry, it just makes a huge difference. Yeah, thankfully, we can survive remote, and we've proven that we can, and we can do our job remote, but we can do it much better if we either have a combination of it, or if, we have to integrate that in-person contact at some point to be, head and shoulders above the others, I think.
Yeah. Good point, John.
Totally agree. All right. Ready for this, Todd? So how do you motivate your staff, with activities and stuff like that, man? I mean, you're high energy, just like me and John. How do you motivate them to get stuff done? They're having a bad day. Say they didn't put anybody to work in 2 days. We'll be like, oh boy, how do you get them motivated?
Well, my thing is I always like to know what motivates someone. For me as a leader, if I always say, understand what motivates the individual. I think blanket motivation programs, contests, et cetera, are great, but not everyone buys it, right? Mm-hmm. I think with your question, it's really more about that individual. And I think part of leadership is knowing what motivates who's working with you. It might be a day off. It might be more time with their family. It might be a gift certificate to the best restaurant in town, right? It might just be a pat on the back or an attaboy, right? But understanding what that motivating factor is for that person is what's most critical. So somebody having a bad day, if you know what motivates them, you can really get personal about it. And I think that's, again, going back to John's point about that human connection, I think that's really important.
And that's an aspect of people management that's so critical, is understanding that you can't manage everybody the same way. You've got to understand what makes them tick, what's their why, and that will help you as a manager and a leader motivate them. To your point, I love that you said that, because if you don't have that unique connection, it's kind of like parenting, if you will. My parents were old school. They raised everybody the same way. And some of us embraced it, and some of us were like, that ain't gonna work. You learn by trial and error that, all kids are different. So same thing. You got to parent them a little bit different, because how they're going to be. Employees are no different. You've got to figure that out.
Right.
And what you said, Todd, was the same thing you do to candidates too. Right. You nurture them too and praise them so they don't ghost you.
Well said.
That's a simple thing.
Yeah. Well, and you talk about the candidate experience, that you're really uber focused on that. That's huge now more than ever. That's become a major focus across our industry, is, from the minute you have that first encounter with a candidate that's considering working with or for you, and that you are considering putting to work. How is that experience, not just in the interview, not just in the placement, but long term? Like, what is that initial onboarding like? What is the relationship like? What's the communication like? There's a lot of focus on that. It's under a magnifying glass for good reason, because that's really making a lot of candidates decide who they will work with and who they won't work with based on how they're treated.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. It's no different than when you go into a restaurant. We all make choices about where we go based on our experience, right?
Yeah, you're right.
Why do you have a favorite restaurant? Because if you go there enough, when you go in, they have your drink ready for you. They know what you want. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's no different. And so, having little things. So, we just implemented a new phone system, RingCentral. So our recruiters, when they call, it pops up who it is and what the last conversation was, or anything special about that person. So when they answer the phone, they can jump right into a conversation. The person, it feels like your neighborhood bar. Right. So
is that linked to your ATS? So it pulls up whatever.
Yeah, we built an integration through Brio with RingCentral into Bullhorn, and it.
That's awesome. I love that. So it saves the recruiter even having click and find it while they're answering the phone. It pops up automatically. What a great idea.
Yeah. Sometimes they also don't like it because it's hard to hide from when it's right on your screen. So.
I love it.
It's right there. It's right there. So,
hey, Todd, any other technology coming up in the future that you're seeing out there that you're maybe sampling, or anything? You give any pointers out there to executive leaders out there, maybe what to look into?
Yeah, I think anything that because I believe that companies are going to move to more flex scheduling, especially in the industrial space. And this is really in the industrial space, because that's what we do. I think that any technology that allows you to schedule use unique schedules, bundle and unbundle your job assignments so that multiple people can pick up the hours that are required is going to be really important. So I think any technology like that, and right now we're calling it on-demand technology, I think is really, really important. And it's something that takes a while to implement. So it's something that if you're not looking at it, not considering it, start looking at it now.
It's interesting. And I'm in healthcare staffing, and we are going live with that integrated technology within the next month. We piloted it, and it's giving our clients, if you will, the ability to open up a schedule and say, I need people on these shifts. And then that's automatically integrated on our end. And it makes it much easier rather than having to commute that, who do you need? When do you need them type of thing? They're able to just do it automatically. It's going to save a boatload of time.
Bingo. Yeah. Real efficient for the candidates as well.
Do you see any potential disruptors? We always have them. What do you see? What are your thoughts on what might be coming down the pike?
Boy, who knows? I'll tell you, the one thing I say right now, I use change as constant. I've never seen change at the pace that we have change right now. And that's the thing that makes me nervous. John and Richard, we had built our own technology for years until recently. Until 2 years ago, we said, we need to stop doing this. We can't keep up. The R&D is just unbelievable, the investment. And the returns just diminished because you're not getting the time to get the return on what you build. Because by the time it's really functioning, it's obsolete. So we made the decision to stop building our own and really go with other technologies that are investing a ton in R&D and that you can bolt on and off. So, I think disruption is going to be anything that involves a total talent management system and the ability to do the flex worker, the on-demand worker, the temp to hire, the insourcing, all of that. I think it's going to be anyone who can really, that's really going to disrupt the industry because companies are going to need that total focus.
Embracing change, man. There it is.
Great stuff.
Wow. Well, we're going to head up there. Hey, John, any final thoughts, my man, on this segment, man?
I took some notes, as I always tend to do, because I am a copious note taker. And I like that Todd mentioned a couple things. I like that he says, keep it simple. And if you want to rise to the executive ranks within any industry, but we're talking staffing and recruiting, get a coach and interact with your peers. I thought that those were great words of advice and ones that folks should take to heart.
Great.
Well said. Todd, any final thoughts, my man?
No, thanks for having me on the show. I think it's really great. This is part of being good leaders, right? Is you're getting out there, talking to people, spreading that abundance mentality, having folks share what their secret sauce is to help others, and glad to be part of it.
I'm going to just wrap it up like this. What Todd said, believe in yourself and believe in them. You believe in each other, the rest is history, man. I'm telling you. Hey, Todd, thank you so much for coming on. I know you have a busy schedule, buddy. Hopefully we'll see you at Staffing World. If we do, man.
We will.
You can last year with me and coming down at the booth and chatting on the show again, man. But till next time, next week, same time, same place, we have another crazy, exciting guest. I'm not going to tell you who it is yet. Till next week. See you at 1:00.
Awesome. Thanks again, Todd. Thanks, Richard.
Again, Todd. Take care.